In the eerie stillness of a world brought to its knees, New Harmony stood as a testament to human resilience. The once bustling streets now echoed with the whispers of survivors, their footsteps a stark reminder of the life that once thrived here. Sarah, a former music teacher with eyes that had seen too much, walked these streets with a purpose that belied the desolation around her. She was the reluctant leader of this ragtag community, thrust into a role she never imagined for herself. As she moved through the settlement, her gaze lingered on the faces of her people, tired, worn, but still alive. The challenge that loomed before them was as vast as the silence that had engulfed their world. How to keep hope alive when everything seemed lost. Sarah knew that survival wasn't just about food and shelter, it was about preserving the essence of humanity in a world that had forgotten its song. As she reached the central square, a makeshift gathering place for the community, she paused. The weight of their collective future pressed down on her shoulders. How do you inspire a symphony when the world has gone deaf to music? Sarah's mind raced with possibilities, each more daunting than the last. She watched as children played with broken toys, their laughter a rare melody in this harsh new reality. Adults moved about their tasks with mechanical efficiency, their eyes devoid of the spark that once defined them. In that moment, Sarah realized that their greatest enemy wasn't the desolation outside their walls, but the creeping despair that threatened to consume them from within. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across New Harmony, Sarah made a decision. She would find a way to rekindle the flame of hope, to remind her people of the beauty that still existed in their hearts. But how? What could possibly bridge the gap between mere survival and truly living? The answer, she knew, lay hidden in the memories of a world long gone, waiting to be rediscovered. As night fell, Sarah retreated to her small quarters, her mind ablaze with an idea so audacious it just might work. Tomorrow, she would propose something that could either save their souls or be dismissed as the ravings of a desperate woman. Either way, the silence of their apocalypse was about to be shattered. What melodies could arise from the ashes of civilization? And more importantly, would anyone be willing to listen? 5 years had passed since the world as they knew it crumbled. The catastrophe struck with a fury that left no corner of the globe untouched, a perfect storm of natural disasters and human conflicts that brought civilization to its knees. New Harmony emerged from this chaos, a patchwork community of survivors who found each other in the midst of devastation. Sarah, along with a handful of others, had guided this fledgling society through its infancy, facing challenges that would have seemed insurmountable in the old world. As she walked the perimeter of their settlement, memories of those early days flooded back. The desperate scramble for food, the nights spent huddled together for warmth, the constant fear of hostile groups lurking in the shadows. They had overcome so much, yet Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest battle was still ahead. The physical needs of the community were being met, albeit barely. But it was the spiritual hunger, the slow erosion of hope, that threatened to unravel everything they had built. Sarah paused at the edge of their small agricultural plot, where withered crops struggled against the unforgiving earth. John, a former accountant turned reluctant farmer, looked up from his work, his eyes reflecting the weariness that seemed to permeate the air. "Another bad season," he muttered, more to himself than to Sarah. She nodded, understanding the weight of those simple words. How long could they sustain themselves like this? And even if they could, was mere survival enough? As the day wore on, Sarah found herself drawn to the makeshift school they had established. Inside, Emily, once a librarian, now taught a group of children using salvaged books and improvised materials. The lesson was about the world before, a history that seemed more like fantasy to these young minds. Sarah lingered, listening as Emily described great cities, technological marvels, and the music that once filled the air. The children's eyes widened with wonder, but there was something else there too, a longing for something they had never known. It was in that moment that Sarah's resolve solidified. They needed more than just food and shelter to truly survive. They needed a reason to keep going, a connection to the humanity they were in danger of losing. As she left the school, a question burned in her mind: how do you rebuild a culture from scratch? What elements of the old world were worth preserving, and what new traditions could emerge from their shared struggle? The sun was setting as Sarah made her way back to the center of New Harmony. The nightly meeting would start soon, where the day's challenges and small victories would be discussed. But tonight would be different. Tonight, Sarah would propose an idea that could change everything. As she walked, she rehearsed her words, knowing that what she was about to suggest might seem foolish to many. But in her heart, she knew it was necessary. The fate of New Harmony hung in the balance, not just its physical existence, but its very soul. What melody could unite their fragmented world? And would her people be willing to take a leap of faith into the unknown? The community hall, a repurposed warehouse with walls patched by scavenged materials, buzzed with low murmurs as New Harmony's residents gathered for their nightly meeting. Sarah stood at the front, her heart racing as she surveyed the familiar faces. Each person carried the weight of their new world in their eyes, a mixture of resilience and resignation. She took a deep breath, knowing her next words could either ignite a spark of hope or be extinguished by the harsh realities they faced daily. "We need music," Sarah announced, her voice cutting through the ambient chatter. The room fell silent, confusion etched on every face. John, the community's pragmatist, was the first to speak. "Music? Sarah, we need food, medicine, better defenses. How is music going to help us survive?" His words were echoed by nods and murmurs of agreement. Sarah had anticipated this reaction, but it still stung. She pressed on, her voice gaining strength. "We're surviving, yes. But are we living? Music can unite us, remind us of our humanity, give us something to strive for beyond mere existence." Emily, the former librarian, leaned forward, a glimmer of interest in her eyes. "But how? We have no instruments, no sheet music." Sarah smiled, her enthusiasm growing. "We'll make them. We'll create our own music, our own instruments. It'll be a project for everyone, something to bring us together." The room erupted in a cacophony of voices. Some, like Mike, a former carpenter, saw potential in the idea. Others dismissed it as a waste of precious resources and time. As the debate raged, Sarah watched the shifting emotions play across her people's faces. Hope, skepticism, excitement, fear, all mingled in a complex harmony of human expression. In the midst of the chaos, a small voice piped up. Lisa, one of the community's youngest members, asked innocently, "Can I help make a drum?" Her question silenced the room. Sarah knelt beside her. "Of course you can. We'll all work together." As the meeting continued late into the night, the seed of Sarah's idea began to take root. Plans were made, tasks assigned, and slowly, a tentative excitement began to build. But challenges loomed large. How would they create instruments from the limited materials they had? Could music really make a difference in their struggle for survival? And perhaps most importantly, could they afford to divert time and resources to this endeavor when their needs were already so great? As the meeting dispersed, Sarah found herself both exhilarated and terrified. She had set something in motion, but where would it lead? The coming days would test not only her leadership but the very fabric of their community. Would this be the beginning of a new chapter for New Harmony, or the prelude to its downfall? Only time would tell. As she lay awake that night, Sarah hummed a forgotten melody, wondering what symphonies might arise from the ruins of their world. The first notes of New Harmony's musical experiment were far from harmonious. In an abandoned lot at the edge of their settlement, a cacophony of sounds erupted as the community attempted to breathe life into their makeshift instruments. Tom, a former construction worker, beat rhythmically on a drum fashioned from an old oil barrel, while Lisa struggled to coax a melody from a flute made of PVC pipe. The air was filled with a chaotic blend of enthusiasm and frustration. Sarah moved among the group, offering encouragement and guidance where she could. But even she couldn't hide the doubt that crept into her mind. Was this folly? Had she led her people down a path that would only end in disappointment? As days turned into weeks, something remarkable began to happen. The discordant noise slowly transformed into recognizable tunes. People who had barely spoken to each other before found themselves collaborating, sharing ideas, and solving problems together. The act of creation, of working towards something beyond mere survival, sparked a change in the community's spirit. Yet challenges persisted. Food stores dwindled, and the ever-present threat of outside dangers loomed. Some, like Robert, a former banker, vocally questioned the wisdom of devoting time to music when there were real problems to solve. "We can't eat songs," he'd grumbled during community meetings. Sarah felt the weight of these concerns. She spent sleepless nights wondering if she had made the right choice. Had she doomed them all with her idealistic pursuit? The turning point came unexpectedly. One evening, as the sun set and work wound down, Kevin, who had been tinkering with a homemade guitar, began to play a simple, haunting melody. Gradually, others joined in, a tentative drumbeat here, a whispered harmony there. For a few precious moments, the hardships of their world faded away, replaced by the shared experience of creating something beautiful. As the impromptu concert ended, Sarah looked around at her people. There were tears in some eyes, smiles on faces that hadn't shown joy in months. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Music was doing what Sarah had hoped. It was reminding them of their humanity, of the connections that bound them together. But questions still lingered. Could this newfound spirit sustain them through the harsh realities they faced? How would they balance their musical pursuits with the pressing needs of survival? And what of those who still saw this as a frivolous distraction? As New Harmony's orchestra grew in skill and confidence, so too did the challenges they faced. Winter was approaching, bringing with it the specter of scarcity and cold. Sarah knew that the true test of her vision was yet to come. Would the music they created be enough to carry them through the darkest days? Or would it prove to be a beautiful but ultimately futile gesture in the face of their harsh reality? The community stood on the brink of a pivotal moment. The melodies they were creating could either be the soundtrack to their renaissance or the final notes of their story. As Sarah lay awake that night, listening to the gentle strumming of a guitar somewhere in the distance, she wondered, what symphony would New Harmony compose in the face of its greatest challenges yet? The coldest winter in living memory descended upon New Harmony with a vengeance. Icy winds howled through the makeshift shelters, and snow piled high against the walls of their compound. Food stores dwindled at an alarming rate, and illness spread through the community like wildfire. It was in this bleak landscape that Sarah's musical experiment faced its ultimate test. As conditions worsened, dissent grew louder. Robert, once merely skeptical, now openly challenged Sarah's leadership. "We're freezing and starving," he shouted during a particularly tense community meeting, "and you want us to fiddle while Rome burns?" His words struck a chord with many, and Sarah felt the fragile unity of New Harmony beginning to crack. Yet, even as hope seemed to fade, a small group led by David and Jessica continued to practice their music in secret. They huddled in a corner of the old warehouse, their breath visible in the frigid air, fingers numb but determined. It was Jessica who approached Sarah with an audacious idea, a concert, right in the depths of winter, to lift the community's spirits. Sarah hesitated. The risks were enormous. Gathering everyone together would deplete their precious fuel reserves, and there was no guarantee that music could overcome the very real dangers they faced. But as she looked into Jessica's eyes, bright with determination, Sarah made her decision. Word spread quickly, and on the night of the winter solstice, the longest, darkest night of the year, New Harmony gathered in the community hall. Candles flickered, casting long shadows on gaunt faces. Sarah's heart raced as she surveyed the crowd. Some looked hopeful, others skeptical, and a few downright hostile. As the first notes rang out, a hush fell over the assembly. David's homemade violin screeched at first, but soon found its voice. Jessica's clear soprano rose above the instrumental backdrop, singing a song of resilience and hope. One by one, other voices and instruments joined in, creating a tapestry of sound that seemed to push back against the winter's chill. The magic of the moment was palpable. Tears streamed down weathered cheeks, and hands that had been clenched in anger now clasped together in shared emotion. Even Robert, the staunchest critic, found himself swaying to the music, a look of wonder replacing his usual scowl. As the final notes faded away, a profound silence fell over the hall. Then, slowly at first but building to a crescendo, applause erupted. It was more than approval, it was a collective release of pent-up emotion, a cathartic expression of shared humanity. In that moment, Sarah saw the true power of what they had created. It wasn't just about the music itself, but about the act of coming together, of creating something beautiful in the face of overwhelming odds. The concert had given them a glimpse of what they could be, of the strength they possessed when united. But as the applause died down and reality set in once more, questions lingered. Could this newfound unity survive the harsh weeks ahead? Had they truly turned a corner, or was this just a fleeting moment of respite in their struggle for survival? As the community dispersed into the cold night, their breaths visible in the frosty air, Sarah pondered the path ahead. The concert had been a triumph, but the real test was yet to come. How would they translate this spiritual victory into practical survival? And could the harmony they had found in music extend to all aspects of their lives? The longest night of the year was over, but the dawn that followed would bring with it new challenges and opportunities. As Sarah blew out the last candle, she wondered, what symphony would New Harmony compose in the light of this new day? As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the winter gloom, New Harmony awoke to a world transformed. The concert had ignited something within the community, a spark of hope that refused to be extinguished by the harsh realities that still surrounded them. The change was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew with each passing day. Kevin, once a quiet presence in the background, now led daily music sessions that drew people from all corners of the settlement. These gatherings became more than just practice, they evolved into a forum where ideas were shared, problems discussed, and solutions found. The rhythmic pounding of drums seemed to energize their work in the fields, where they battled against the unforgiving soil to coax life from frozen ground. Sarah watched in amazement as the community's newfound spirit manifested in tangible ways. Productivity increased as people worked with a renewed purpose. Conflicts that once threatened to tear them apart were now resolved through dialogue and compromise, often facilitated by the common ground they found in music. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The challenges they faced were still immense. Food remained scarce, and the threat of outside dangers ever present. Yet, where before these obstacles might have broken them, now they faced them with a united front. When a particularly vicious storm destroyed part of their protective wall, the entire community came together to rebuild. their efforts accompanied by improvised work songs that lightened the load and strengthened their resolve. As winter began to loosen its grip, signs of growth appeared not just in the tentative green shoots pushing through the soil, but in the community itself. Trade negotiations with neighboring settlements, once tense and unproductive, took on a new tone. Sarah found herself using music as a diplomatic tool, organizing small performances that broke down barriers and opened new avenues for cooperation. The most profound changes, however, were in the people themselves. Robert, once the vocal skeptic, now worked tirelessly alongside Sarah, his financial acumen proving invaluable in managing their resources. Emily's school lessons took on new life, incorporating music and art to teach not just survival skills, but to nurture creativity and hope in the younger generation. As spring approached, bringing with it the promise of new beginnings, Sarah reflected on the journey they had undertaken. The music that had started as a desperate gambit had become the heartbeat of New Harmony, pumping vitality and purpose into every aspect of their lives. But questions still lingered in her mind. Was this renaissance sustainable? How would they face the inevitable challenges that lay ahead? The true test came when scouts reported a large group of refugees approaching their settlement. In the past, such news would have been met with fear and suspicion. Now, after heated debate, the community decided to cautiously welcome these newcomers, seeing in them not a threat, but potential new members of their growing symphony. As Sarah stood at the gates, waiting to greet the approaching group, she heard the strains of music beginning behind her. New Harmony's orchestra had assembled, ready to offer a melody of welcome and hope to these weary travelers. In that moment, Sarah realized that their music had become more than just notes and rhythms. It was the very language of their resilience and humanity. What new movements would be added to their ongoing composition? How would the arrival of these newcomers change the harmony they had so carefully cultivated? And in the grand symphony of survival, what role would New Harmony play in the world's rebirth? As the gates swung open, Sarah took a deep breath, ready to face whatever the future might bring, confident in the strength of the community they had built, note by note, day by day. As the seasons turned and New Harmony flourished, news of their unique approach to survival began to spread. Travelers brought tales of a community that had not just endured, but thrived through the power of music. Among these was Jennifer, the leader of a struggling settlement to the east, who arrived seeking guidance and hope. Sarah welcomed Jennifer with open arms, recognizing in her the same weary determination she had once felt. As they walked through New Harmony, Sarah shared their story, the challenges, the doubts, and the ultimate triumph of the human spirit. Jennifer listened with rapt attention, her eyes widening as she witnessed the vibrant life that pulsed through the settlement. In the central square, a group of children rehearsed a new composition under Emily's watchful eye. Their laughter and the joyful notes of their song filled the air, a stark contrast to the somber silence that had once reigned. Jennifer marveled at the sight, tears welling in her eyes. "How?" she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Sarah smiled, remembering her own journey. "It wasn't easy," she admitted. "We had to relearn what it meant to be human, to create beauty in the midst of chaos. But in doing so, we found strength we never knew we had." As they continued their tour, Sarah reflected on the profound changes that had taken root in New Harmony. Music had become more than just a pastime, it was now woven into the very fabric of their society. Conflicts were resolved through collaborative compositions, decisions were made with the rhythm of consensus, and even their trading system had evolved to include performances as a form of currency. But perhaps the most significant change was in the people themselves. The despair that had once threatened to consume them had been replaced by a resilient optimism. They faced each new challenge not with fear, but with creativity and determination. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over New Harmony, Sarah and Jennifer found themselves back at the gates. The evening music session was beginning, and the air was filled with a melody that spoke of hope, struggle, and triumph. Jennifer turned to Sarah, her eyes shining with newfound purpose. "I want to bring this back to my people," she said. "Will you help us?" Sarah nodded, feeling a surge of pride and responsibility. "Of course," she replied. "But remember, the music is just the beginning. It's a tool to unlock the potential that's already within your community." As Jennifer prepared to depart, carrying with her the seeds of a new beginning, Sarah faced the assembled residents of New Harmony. Looking out at their faces, some familiar, some new, all united in purpose, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment and humility. "We've come so far," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "From the silence of despair to this beautiful symphony we've created together. But our work isn't done. There are others out there, struggling as we once did. It's time for us to share what we've learned, to help rebuild not just our own lives, but the world around us." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, growing into a swell of enthusiastic voices. As the sun dipped below the horizon, New Harmony raised their voices in song, a melody of hope, a harmony of resilience, and a promise for the future. Sarah's gaze drifted to the darkening sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. She wondered about the countless other communities out there, each facing their own struggles. How many could be transformed by the power of music and unity? What symphony could arise if they all joined together? As the final notes of the evening's song faded into the night, Sarah posed a question to her people and to all who would hear their story. What melody will you contribute to the world's rebirth? How will you use your voice to create harmony in the face of discord? The legacy of New Harmony was just beginning, a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit has the capacity to create beauty, foster connection, and inspire hope. Their journey from survival to revival stood as a testament to the enduring power of creativity, community, and the indomitable human will to not just survive, but to truly live.